Hi, everybody. Erica Robinson back again from In the Company of Cards. I want to thank all my old subscribers for returning and welcome all my new subscribers. We've had about another, I don't know, like 1,000, I think, since last we were together. Um, so if you don't know, I am the author of Erica's Lenormand of Hope. This is the deck that I read on current events with. Uh, and I am the author of The Language of Lenormand. This is a book that will help you learn how to read the Lenormand system, which is kind of my thing. Um, Thank you for all your kind comments. I really have appreciated them. Thank you for the questions. Today will be mostly viewer questions to do with this election cycle. We're going to look at Senate races mostly today. Um, and then I have a little surprise at the end, so stay tuned. Okay, so I had a viewer who asked me to look at one, two, three, four specific races, Senate races that are pivotal. I know that we will gain the House. I believe that we will gain the House. My cards have indicated that we will gain the House. My cards have been less sure about the Senate keeping the Senate. So, just one or two seats could make a huge difference. So the first race that I was asked to look at is the Montana Senate race. And that's the race between John Tester, who is the Democrat, and Tim Sheehy, who is the Republican. I don't know much about this race, although I know a bit about John Tester, but I will say that yes, polling, according to polling, and polling is notoriously misleading. Sometimes it means to be misleading, sometimes it just happens that way. Um, but I will say, according to polling, Sheehy is up by 7 points. So let's see. What I'm going to do is draw three cards for, uh, we'll say Sheehy because he's on the top right now. So three cards for Sheehy, three cards for Tester, and we'll see whose cards look better. Remember that energy is mutable, and so I can read for this question in this moment, but things can shift. So we're just looking at how things look in this moment. Okay, I shuffled, I'm cutting. I'm going to pull three cards for Republican Sheehy and three cards for Democrat Tester. Really interesting. So for the Republican Sheehy, we have the snake, the tree, and the stork. I'm sure there's a lot of shenanigans going on on his behalf by the Republican Party. Um, so uh, the tree is sort of been going on for a while, whether it's disinformation or whatever it is. But having the stork at the end of the line makes me suspect that he looks good for this race. Things look good for Sheehy. Um, Now we have Tester and we have the book, the scales, but the last card is the mice. So, if Sheehy is already up 7 points, um, Tester's got to be saying, geez, I don't know if I can pull this out. The books is about things we don't know. But I can also mirror this card with the first card in Sheehy's line. And again, there may be bad deed doers, we'll call them, on the part of the Republicans that are doing stuff that Tester is unaware of. So that's not good. Um, Tester's second card is the scales. So it's as though his seat hangs in the balance. And then I can compare the last card for Tester, which is mice, with Sheehy's card, stork. This is good. This is bad. So as things stand now, I think that we will lose Montana's seat. I don't think that John Tester will be able to pull it out. Again, energy is mutable. Anything can happen, but looks like that's one seat down because, of course, Tester is the incumbent. Okay, the next race that I was asked to look at is for Ohio. And this is Democrat Sherrod Brown versus Republican Bernie Moreno. Okay. I will pull 3 cards for Sherrod Brown, and then I will pull 3 cards for Bernie Moreno, the Republican. Okay. So this is for Democrat Sherrod Brown. And this is for Republican challenger Bernie Moreno. Okay, interesting. So for Sherrod Brown, we've got woman, fish, and letter. Many, many, many women are going to come out in the Ohio race because of the abortion issue. And this is many, 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 right? Fish in the sea, so to speak. So there will be many voters coming out for this race and voting for Brown because of this issue. But we have for Bernie Moreno, the young man, we have the birds, and we have the bear. These also are not bad cards. The Republicans will come out strong for him. I'm going to say that even though we have the actual vote itself in the Sherrod Brown threesome, I think this race will be very close. Too close for my cards to call right now. So that's a nail biter, and I will look at it again, of course, as we get closer and closer. Okay. The next race I was asked to look at is, of course, the Pennsylvania race. And this is the race between incumbent Democrat Bob Casey and Republican challenger Dave McCormick. Okay. So this is Pennsylvania, and we know that Pennsylvania is a pivotal state for the national race, the presidential race, but it's also pivotal for us keeping the Senate. Okay. So here are 3 for Bob Casey, the Democrat incumbent, and then 3 for Dave McCormick, the Republican challenger. Okay, so these are Casey's cards, and these are McCormick's cards. Okay, I'm liking this. For Bob Casey, the incumbent Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, we have the son, the dog, and the older man. He's not old, but he's got the experience and the wisdom. He is seen as trustworthy by the electorate. Son is the best card in the deck. McCormick, Crossroads, Mice, and Mountain. They will choose somebody other than McCormick. He won't do well, Mice, he won't do well, and he will be stopped. The Mountain is a stop, a block. So I'm going to call this race, as they say, for Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. Okay. The next race I was asked to look at is Wisconsin. And that's the case, that's the race between incumbent Tammy Baldwin and Republican challenger Eric Hovde. I think his name is pronounced Hovde, Hovde. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I'm cutting. All right. So 3 for Baldwin, who is the Democratic incumbent, and 3 for Eric Hovde, the Republican challenger. Gotta say, this looks difficult for us. Um, and this is Wisconsin. So we've got the older man, we've got the stork, and we've got clouds. You know, this feels Trumpy to me. This is Tammy Baldwin's line, but this feels Trumpy. And the stork is a great card. Love the stork, but it's clouds following the stork. And clouds look like she doesn't do well. Um, we've got this Eric Hovde, and we've got the book, The Lily and the Moon. These are really good cards. Um, Again, energy is mutable. I will look at all of these races once again, but this looks tough for Tammy Baldwin. So we are, what, 1 for 2, 1 for 3, something like that. Okay. The last Senate race I want to look at, and then there's a couple of things I'd like to do after that, but the last Senate race that I'd like to look at, sorry, my voice, is a different viewer asked me to look at this one. This is the Nebraska race. And this is actually a pretty interesting one because it's between two people. One is a Republican. Her name is Deb Fisher, and she is rah, rah, rah 45. So, okay, red all the way. Her challenger, however, is not a Democrat. Her challenger, the only other person in the race, is Dan Osborne, who is an independent. He says he has voted independent all his life. He works, he's a mechanic at um, the Kellogg plant, cereal, Tony the Tiger, all that. Um, and so, so of course, the Republicans want to win, right? They want Deb Fisher to win. So one of the things that they've been saying is that Democratic dark money is going to Dan Osborne's campaign. So Dan Osborne did this very flamboyant thing, which is that he took a blowtorch to his TV and then made the case that, this is why people don't trust politicians because of all this disinformation. Now, what is interesting is that we already know Deb Fisher is Trumpy. But what we don't know, the wild card, is this independent Dan Osborne. He's a union guy. He's been, I think, vice president of his union. Um, Blue collar guy, distrustful of politics sort of in general, and sort of wanting to clean things up, overhaul things, etc. We don't therefore know which side he would caucus with. Kind of like Manchin, right? We don't know. He can be a wild card, but let's just see what the election looks like between Dan Fisher and Dan Osborne, sorry, Dan Osborne and Deb Fisher. And this is the Nebraska race. Again, it's between a Republican Trumpy person, that's Deb Fisher, and an independent who thinks that it should all be, overhauled, and that's Dan Osborne. Okay, so I will have ladies go first. This will be Republican Deb Fisher, and this will be independent Dan Osborne. Okay, so for Deb Fisher, we have the bouquet, the garden, and the snake. Now, in generally, if I saw the snake, I'd say, oh, that's not good for her, but I think it is good for her, actually. Um, I think the Republicans do not mean the democracy any good thing. So I think with the bouquet, that's the reward, that's an award, that's winning something. This is the people. This looks very positive for Republican Deb Fisher running for the Nebraska Senate seat. And this is Dan Osborne, the independent, I'm going to say wild card, because again, we don't know with whom he would caucus. We have the cross, we have the fish, we have the older man. He is kind of the older man. This is kind of him. And he's a sort of a straight shooter, above board type of guy. And I can mirror that with Deb Fisher's snake. A lot of times, an above board kind of guy doesn't stand a chance against a snake. Just saying. Um, the cross, it's sort of like a stop card. Like if you're playing Monopoly, it's like, yes, stop, meaning he won't go further. Uh, fish could easily be the fact that he's being outspent. So I am going to call the Nebraska race for Deb Fisher. I don't want to call it for Deb Fisher, but I'm going to. I will look at this again closer to the time, but it looks to me like Deb Fisher, the Republican, will win the Nebraska seat. Okay. One more thing I thought I would look at, just, curiosity. I have mentioned that the middle of October would be incredibly difficult for 45. We have seen his handlers say that events have been canceled because of his exhaustion. He, of course, is saying, exhausted? Who, me? Couldn't be. Well, I had predicted some sort of physical downturn in his health. And I do think that we're seeing that, both the physical and psychiatric downturn for him. Whether it throws him out, I don't think it will. I think they will pull him over the finish line. Um, and I wanted to ask a couple of questions. I mean, one is kind of, um, you know, mean, and the other is just of national import. So the first kind of mean one is, so I don't know if you heard, but at a rally yesterday, apropos of nothing, 45 was started to talk about golfers, and he brought up the great and the late Arnold Palmer, arguably one of the greatest golf people in golf's history. But he didn't talk about him as a golfer. He talked about him as a manly man, and that other golfers would come out of the communal shower area after a match and having all showered, I guess, communally together, that they would come out and be awestruck uh, at the the size of Arnold Palmer, if you get what I mean. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Why did 45 bring it up? I mean, I have my own thoughts on why he brought it up, but we're not interested in my thoughts, are we, YouTube? We're interested in what the cards have to say. So I thought I'd ask the question, why did Donald Trump reference Arnold Palmer's package? Trying to keep it clean for YouTube. All right, so let's just pull 5 cards on that. Okay. Okay. So we have the moon, we have the sun, we have the tree, we have the garden, and we have the mountain. I think the answer is pretty simple and pretty sad. Um, moon is reputation. And Donald Trump, 45, as I like to call him, is always caught up in what people think of him. Delusional too about what he looks like, what he sounds like, all the rest of it. Um, so in referencing someone else's package, we're meant to think that the same goes for him, right? Now, the sun, he's calling attention to um, what he considers to be the most manly virtues and sort of hoping that, I don't know, that you'll put him in the same category as Arnold Palmer, at least when it comes to package size. The center card is interesting because it's the tree, and the tree is the card for health in all forms. I'm going to draw a clarifier on this: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. So I think this was a mental health glitch because, I mean, who does that? But we will see. And then the garden. This is the people, the audience, right? And I can mirror this fourth card with this second card, sun and garden. It's sort of to say something that will make people laugh or will make people ooh and ah. And it did both of those things. Remember, he brings out people's absolute worst instincts, their crassest instincts. So even if you were in the audience and you're like, "Whoa, what? What are we talking about?" You still would probably nervously laugh. And he would take that to mean that you thought he was a good comedian or telling a story that was interesting or something like that. So it's to burnish his image with the public. He thinks he's funny, but again, as I've said in my Substack articles, he's like a borscht belt comedian who is past his prime. His jokes were never good, and now they're worse. And I'm going to tell you that the first card, the moon, which is reputation, can be mirrored with whatever the last card is. Here, the last card is the mountain. This little anecdote about Arnold Palmer's package did 45's reputation no good. No good. It did not, I mean, if anybody laughed, it was nervous laughter. It was laughter saying, okay, this guy's crazy, that kind of laughter. It didn't do for him what he thought it would do for him. But I also don't think that he calculated it. I think it was a sort of a stream of consciousness kind of thing, which you see with dementia. He goes from one thought to the next that have no connection to each other. He calls it the weave, but it's a bunch of stray threads that actually never get woven into whole cloth. But what I want to do is I want to look at this tree because, again, I think this is mental health related, this glitch that caused him to talk about that. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So the clarifiers for the tree, which is his, in this case, his mental health, his psychiatric mental health. We have the child, the stork, and the heart. Okay, child. What he did was immature. It's what like a middle school boy would say. It's immature. And he thought that it would improve the way people see him, as I mentioned with that moon card, and that would make people love him. He referenced Arnold Palmer because there was an airport named after Arnold Palmer, close to where this rally was. So he thought if he mentioned Arnold Palmer, people would think better of him. People would like him more, people in the crowd. But by by um, by making this juvenile, immature joke, it's kind of like, how kids at a certain age, usually younger than middle school, but they find poop jokes funny. The scatological humor, that's called. He's like that. Now, this speaks to his dementia. That's where that came from. He thought that saying something like that would win the crowd over because it's an Arnold Palmer crowd, because the airport's named after him. Uh, and he really thought that because he thinks manly men should have certain packages. And so if he complimented Arnold Palmer's package, that would win him friends. What a juvenile thing to think. It won him no points reputationally. It lost him points, which is to say, could have even lost him voters, because that's disgusting. I mean, come on, have some respect. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to say is, listen, I am so grateful for all of you, the kind things that you've said about my work, um, my voice. I had somebody yesterday ask me how old I was. Well, I, my answer was forever young. So we'll just leave that at that. I had somebody else ask me what my name is. Are you kidding me? Erica Robinson. I had somebody else comment, what did they say? I don't understand this kind of reading. Well, I'm going to assume that most people don't. I'm not reading tarot here. I could, but I'm not. I'm reading Lenormand, and I'm hoping that people will say, "Whoa, let me look into that. If I don't get her deck, let me get somebody else's Lenormand deck." There are many beautiful Lenormand decks out there. Lenormand can be a friend. That 3 a.m. phone call friend that people say, oh, call me anytime when they don't really mean it. Come over anytime, but they don't really mean it. When Lenormand says, I'm available to you to answer your questions, you can even ask me the same question over and over and again, over again, and I will help you. That's all I want. I just want people to understand that we are tapped in to the universe, that the universe cares about us, that our ancestors mean us very, very well, and that we are not alone. So that's why I'm doing what I do. So speaking of, Halloween is coming, and I wanted to sort of give a gift to those of you who've been so kind to me. And I thought, what if I did a YouTube live on Halloween for up to 2 hours um, and answer people's questions. So, you would come on and I would be here and you would type your question in the chat. And I would have somebody monitoring the chat, and I would do 5 card readings on issues that are personal to you. I don't do personal readings, obviously, here on this venue. I do personal readings, but I thought this could be my free gift to you to thank you for all your support. I know that I will not get to everybody. in those 2 hours, but I'm willing to stay a maximum of 2 hours. I haven't figured out a time yet of when I might do this, because I know how Halloween is. You've got a lot of people have kids that they have to get all dressed up. I mean, I'm through that as a parent. People's doorbells ring, right? And you want to be able to give the treat to the kids who come. So I'm trying to think of what would be a good time, but I do think I'd like to do this to give you back a little something for your kindness to me. So these will be personal readings that I will do on Halloween. So stay tuned for more information about when I plan on doing this. Thank you all for your support. If you have not already done so, please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you very soon. Take care.